their offspring and to most wildcats alive today. Over time, the virus may also have evolved into less lethal strains. Today, wildcats and FIV have reached the end of a long evolutionary process and have adapted to each other. Humans and HIV only recently embarked on the path that might eventually lead to a truce. But the example of the wild cats convinced O'Brien there must be people endowed with mutations that protect them from HIV. He set out to find them.
Over a 10-year period of time, I quietly collected blood samples from 10,000 individuals that are high risk. My colleagues and I extracted the DNA, and we were stunned to discover a whopping mutation which protected against HIV infection. And it was the first gene that we could definitively say was influencing the outcome of exposure to this deadly virus.
Most people have receptors on their immune cells that allow HIV to dock and gain entry. But people with the mutation discovered by O'Brien lack some or all of these receptors. Infection by HIV becomes impossible. The mutation is present in about 10% of European Caucasians, but completely absent in native African and East Asian peoples. Something in the evolutionary history of Caucasians must have favored the survival of people with this mutation.
We've actually used precise dating techniques to date the last time such a selective pressure took place, and that came out 700 years ago. Well, if you look in the history books, that was the time of a rather dramatic infectious disease pandemic, which was the Black Death or the bubonic plague. And at that time, 1/3 of Europeans were wiped out.
A mutation that saved people from the plague 7 centuries ago may now protect their descendants from infection by HIV.
Today, when we scroll through the genes of cats or humans, we discover that they're littered with these footprints of historic epidemics that have defined the survival of today's living species.
We all bear the marks of our ancestors' struggle for survival. But evolution is driven not just by conflict and competition. Cooperation and teamwork have also ensured the survival of the fittest.
Toward the end of the 20th century, biologists began to realize that there's another force, equally important and responsible for the buildup of a great deal of the magnificent superstructure of the Earth's biodiversity, and that is cooperation, what we call symbiosis, and particularly mutualistic symbiosis. That is, intimate living together of different kinds of organisms in which there is a partnership which benefits both of the partners.
Nature abounds in symbiosis. Many species depend on a partner for their very survival. A grouper enjoys a cleaning as tiny shrimp eat the parasites on its skin. Anemones give safe harbor to clownfish who bring food and chase off predators. With nectar and pollen, flowers entice birds and bees to help fertilize them. Most plants rely on fungi living on their roots to extract nutrients from the soil. And grazing animals could not digest their diet without the bacteria that live in their gut and break down plant matter. We too are symbiotic creatures. Beneficial bacteria cover every inch of our skin and the length of our intestines. They help digest food, produce vitamins and keep dangerous microbes out. Symbiosis has deep roots in the history of life. Some 50 to 60 million years ago, just after the age of the dinosaurs, two species formed a lasting bond, here in the dense thicket that would become the Amazonian rainforest.
A big mature adder nest.
These huge mounds of earth are the product of that partnership, one that brought Ted Schultz and Ulrich Mueller to a remote corner of Brazil.
Amazing. It's late enough.
The unlikely excavators of all this dirt are leafcutter ants.
Look, they're bringing stuff in there. There's some foragers here, starting.
Yeah.
Leafcutter ants make their nests in underground chambers. They emerge regularly to forage, blazing trails that extend hundreds of feet into the forest. Most tropical plants are permeated with toxic chemicals, a deterrent against browsers. The ants cut fresh vegetation, but they don't eat it. They feed it to another organism. Foragers carry their cargo down into the nest and turn it over to smaller worker ants. They clean the leaf fragments and chew them into a pulpy mulch. Leafcutters cultivate a fungus that breaks down the toxins in the leaves and swells with proteins and sugars. This is the ant's food.
Both the ants and the cultivated fungus are dependent on each other for living. The ants need the fungus as a food. They're dependent on it. You take away the fungus, they will die. In reverse, the fungus cannot do without the ants. So it's a mutual codependency.
A mature colony of leafcutter ants can consist of as many as 8 million individuals, and they're the dominant herbivores of the New World tropics. They take an estimated 15 to 20% of all the fresh vegetation. A mature colony of Atta leafcutter ants are the equivalent of an adult cow sitting in the middle of the rainforest, foraging on the vegetation in their immediate area.
The entire rainforest is affected by the symbiosis of ant and fungus. To understand how it evolved, Schultz and Mueller collect ant nests throughout Latin America.
Here's one. Where? Oh, yeah.
An experienced eye can spot the subtle signs of a young nest, founded perhaps 6 months ago when a new queen left home with a bit of fungus in her mouth and burrowed into the ground.
There it is. Beautiful.
Opening a nest is a very exciting moment. Suddenly the cavity opens and you see the fungus garden. And then you may see the queen.
There's the queen.
Yeah. I see it.
It's the size of a peanut.
What we've learned from studying the ants is that you can have a long-term existence over 50 million years as an agriculturist. There's clear